Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about the patch dropping for the 8th of August. This patch is going to be a little bit bigger than last time, but not a whole lot bigger. So let's just jump right into it. First of all, a new unit is being released again for the third week in a row. Fortune Teller is being released. Fortune Teller is a Glacier Priest unit that is 3 cost. So Priest is a 1 synergy class, much functioning a lot like demons or dwarves. What Priests do is they reduce the damage you take by 20% whenever you lose a battle, and Fortune Teller's skill is going to be able to prevent ally heroes from dying for 4 seconds on a 15-second cooldown. And at 1 star, it prevents 1 ally hero from dying, and at 3 stars, it prevents 3 ally heroes from dying. Blight Sorcerer is being removed. This makes grabbing 5 costs a little bit more consistent, and is definitely going to be the final nail in the coffin for 6 mage builds until they release another mage, which I think people are suspecting is going to be the next unit released. Next thing to note is that a lot of items are being removed. Bone Claw, Nether Essence, Crystal of Devil Blood, Elf Headwear, Kappa, and Pulse Staffs 3 through 5 are all being removed. Whatever recipes that they were building into are being altered slightly, and you'll just have to experiment with them once you get into game. In terms of the balance changes, there were some warrior nerfs. The werewolf minion damages were reduced, and the pirate captain armor was reduced. The Knight's nerf from last patch is being reverted. Tortola Elder is being buffed. Ripper is being buffed. Venom is being buffed. Tsunami Stalker and Siren are being nerfed, and the Dwarf effect is being reworked. The new Dwarf effect is that they will attack the enemy with the lowest HP within their range instead of getting 2 extra range. So how do I think that these changes are going to be affecting the meta? First of all, Fortune Teller is actually a really important addition because it removes the need for Berserker in any Glacier composition, most notably Glacier Knight compositions. Glacier Knights have a really strong spike when you hit 4 Knights and 4 Glaciers, and usually you can reach this at level 7, but the only problem is that getting Berserker is really inconsistent at level 7. But with the addition of Fortune Teller, you can reach this power spike way earlier. And it'll actually make it way more consistent because whichever 4 Knights you have and whichever 4 Glaciers you have doesn't actually matter that much. It's just the fact that the 4 Glacier buff is so strong and the 4 Knight buff is so strong that whichever units you have will be really strong and you'll power spike nonetheless. Another important impact that Fortune Teller will have on the meta will be that loose streaking will be better, again, due to the Priest buff. It'll make your interest that you're grabbing every turn a little bit less, so your loose streaking will be a little bit slower, but the reduced damage, the 20% reduced damage, seems to most likely be worth it. So this removal of Blight Sorcerer is going to be the final nail in the coffin for the 6 mage builds until they release another mage, because there will only be 6 mages, and that's just too inconsistent. One of them is God of Thunder, which is a contested piece considering how strong Divinity is still. In terms of the item changes, I don't suspect that this is going to be affecting the meta all too much. It'll just make the item drops feel a lot stronger. It might polarize the item drops considering they're removing a lot of the worst items, most notably Crystal of Devil Blood, but however these item changes affect the meta, they'll most likely be affecting each composition approximately the same amount. The removal of Nether Essence is quite surprising to me, but other than that, these all make sense. Alright, so for the balance changes, the warrior nerfs are actually relatively small. I was actually surprised at how small the warrior nerfs are. They are hitting 2 of the most impactful units for warrior, werewolf and pirate captain. The minion damage and the armor nerfs are kind of small, so I expect warriors will have approximately the same strength as before the patch. The Knight's nerf revert is fine, I don't really mind it. I don't think it affects the viability of Knights at all. The Tortola buff, I think, is going to make 3 mages a little bit stronger. Actually a pretty decent amount stronger considering he got an AI buff earlier as well. Ripper armor buff I don't see affecting the meta all too much. The Venom AI buffs I expect will affect Dragon Knights a lot more than it'll affect Assassins. The only problem with it affecting Dragon Knights a lot more is that, in my opinion, Glacier Knights are going to be a lot stronger than Dragon Knights after this patch, so the amount of play that Venom is going to be seeing might not increase at all. The Tsunami Stalker nerf and the Siren nerf, as well as the Dwarf rework, as well as the Warrior nerfs, actually seem to affect the Hunters the most in this patch. I think the Dwarf effect rework is probably a buff considering Dwarf Ranger already has a 5 attack range, so having a 7 range doesn't really change all that much. The amount of CC that you're getting from Tsunami Stalker and Siren is actually very significant, so having them both be nerfed by a little bit could actually change the strengths of hunters by a significant amount. Usually, at least the way I play it, whenever I play 6 hunters, I'm usually running a 3 warrior frontline that includes both werewolf and pirate captain. So seeing werewolf and pirate captain both being nerfed could actually have more of an effect on hunters than it does for actual warriors. So those are the specific balance changes, but how do I feel that these are going to be affecting the actual overall meta? 6 mages are officially dead. Not very many people played them with the removal of Ogre Mage, but at this point, they're officially dead. I think Beast Warrior will continue to see play and will remain one of the strongest builds, but I don't think that Warriors are going to be the strongest build. That's because I think Knights are going to be a lot stronger, Glacier Knights will be a lot more consistent without needing Berserker anymore, and Dragon Knights are actually going to be stronger too with the Venom buffs. So Beast Warriors being one of the strongest builds and not the strongest build is not so much Warriors being nerfed, and more so, in my opinion, Knights being buffed. Not only are Knights being buffed, but Hunters are also being nerfed, so that's also an indirect buff to Knights. I think that Hunters might actually fall out of the meta, but time will have to tell for that. Hunters have good matchup against Knights, but don't have a great matchup against Warriors. So, considering the nerfs make them worse against Knights, we'll have to see if they remain in the meta or not. With these nerfs, I think you can expect more feathered compositions and assassin compositions popping back into the meta, as well as 3 mage compositions to be popping back into the meta. I think this is because the hunters are being nerfed and warriors are being slightly nerfed as well. That means feathered is going to be stronger because of the hunter's nerf, and assassins are going to be stronger because of the warrior's nerf. Assassins don't do great against knights, but they don't do too awful against knights either, and feathered actually does pretty decently against knights. So this balanced patch will probably have the most effect on feathered and a lesser effect on assassins. I think you might actually be able to expect more glacier variants, like a glacier hunter build or maybe a glacier warrior build, depending on which one's the strongest. I think a glacier hunter build could very well work with Egersis, considering the addition of Egersis units. And glacier warriors I don't expect as much, but I think there's going to be a lot more experimentation with glaciers now that a 5th glacier unit has been released. 3 mage humans I expect to be a pretty strong build. I think the thing that will determine its viability will be its matchup against Glacier Knights specifically, because I think that they do pretty decently against warriors, and they do decently against feathered as well. So we'll have to see how they do, but I expect that they'll be as strong as approximately Dragon Knights. So in terms of the strongest builds after this patch, it's going to be kind of hard to say, but I think the strongest builds are going to be Beast Warrior, Glacier Knights, and Divinity Mages, all as a tie for the strongest builds, depending on who's contesting the builds and how lucky you get for your rolls for those builds. Then I think Feathered is probably going to be the next best build, and then Dragon Knights and Assassins are probably going to be about that strong, and then Hunters and 3 Mages are going to be slightly viable, but I don't see them really flourishing in this meta. I think that 3 mages might be a little bit stronger than I've placed it at, and hunters have a slight chance of being stronger than I've placed it at. I think that assassins might be a little bit stronger and dragon knights might be a little bit weaker, but if I had to place these builds at any place within the meta, this is how I'd place them. I apologize if I've missed any builds. I kind of doing this off the cuff, so I can't really remember every viable build off the top of my head, but this is how I place them as I see them. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Those were my thoughts on the meta and how I think that it's going to be progressing in this next patch. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.